If you want to support the channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thank you. What's up, everybody? Tricks Ridiculous back with another video, and this is my new Deadshot build. I've been tweaking with this. This is post-patch, obviously. The burn meta is out, so everyone's looking for kind of what's the next best thing. I gotta say, I think I got a pretty hot ticket right here. This build absolutely fucks. So I'm gonna go over it, kind of explain what it's trying to do, where it's trying to go, and then I'll leave you guys with some gameplay as I usually do. Before we jump into it, be sure to like the video if you're into more end game content like this, and be sure to subscribe if you're brand new to the channel, because we're going to continue covering Suicide Squad, all new end game builds and all that good stuff. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. So this is a Deadshot traversal based craze build, and it's really focused around the tier 3 Bane set, which gives you 4% damage to all enemies who have at least for each 1% of health they're missing. Critical hits on enemies below 50% trigger Bane's Fury, giving you 50% damage and 50% damage to crazed enemies for 60 seconds. And then 5% chance that enemies can explode on death and crazed enemies within 10 meters. And that can stack up to 15 times. Okay, so giving you up to 750% base bonus damage plus an extra 750 damage to crazed enemies. And we're going to be, I assure you, we're going to be at 15 stacks of Bane's Fury all the time, okay? And then the 3-piece bonus is all enemies hit with your traversal attack become crazed, and each enemy killed while Bane's Fury is active generates 10% traversal resource. Killing an enemy grants traversal with a traversal attack immediately gives you 5 stacks of Bane's Fury. That last part doesn't really matter too much, but basically what we're using this for is to craze enemies via our traversal attack. We're going to be getting our traversal attack back all the time. Super quick, super easy. You'll see in the gameplay just how fast you get it back. If you don't get it back immediately, it'll be with like 2 bullets. You'll get it back, and you'll just be spamming that fuel drop over and over and over again. So how do we take advantage of that? Well, so to get the Bane set, we're going to be using the I'll Make It Quick Sniper, the Building Thunder as your firearm 2, and this could flip-flop. It doesn't matter which one's 1 and which one's 2. And then we're going to be using a Master Unstoppable as our shield. That'll be our 3-piece set. We're not using any other set pieces. Everything else is infamous, as you can tell on the screen. Now, what we're primarily using here is going to be a Building Thunder. We're not really using the I'll Make It Quick. Sometimes I do whip this out for helicopters, right, if I'm trying to get something really far distance, but 99% of our damage is going to be coming, at least from firearms. We're going to be using a Building Thunder equipped all the time, right? So for this, you're going to want crit hit chance, crit hit damage, and then traversal attack resource from critical hits. That last one's important. We're going to be critting all the time. As you see, we're Deadshot. We have so much bonus crit, especially when we get into our higher combos. We're going to be, every shot we shoot is really going to be a crit. So just a few shots will get us back that traversal attack resource, no problem. And there's some things in his skill tree that make it so you get it back nearly instantaneously. And then whatever little amount you need left, we're going to be using this, just a couple of bullets, couple of crits, along with all of the extra traversal resource stacking that we're getting. We're going to be getting that back in literally 2 to 3 bullets tops. All right. The other thing we're going to be using really to take advantage of all this, we're going to be using Two-Face Persuader. It's not super necessary. We're not really going to be meleeing too hard. What we will be doing is certainly shield harvesting quite a bit. So we do want melee damage, suicide strike damage, and then melee damage on crazed enemies, because when the suicide strike does count as a melee hit, especially if you do it to a crazed enemy, you're going to be doing a pretty significant amount of damage. You know, I've seen suicide strikes with this build go upwards of 5-6 million, and then takedowns going upwards in the 40 or 50 million on some brute enemies. And then even just the actual bullets yourself out of your assault rifle, you'll see in the gameplay, we can get bullets going up to 200,000 a bullet. So the damage speaks for itself. What you want to be using for your grenade, I use the Black Mask's target priority. So what that's going to do for us, we don't really care about grenade damage with this build. We're not spec'd into grenade damage in any way, shape, or form. So really what we're looking to do with this is use it for its effect, right? So the grenade does no damage, and instead causes enemies hit to get launched into slow motion and take 200% more damage for 30 seconds and become targeted by enemies under the venom frenzy affliction. So basically what that means is that these enemies will all kind of go up into the air, and then anyone who's near them who is crazed will be laser focused on hitting them and them only, right? This is basically just a passive bonus, right? What we can do, you'll see how we're really not spec'd into damage. We're spec'd into explosion radius, shield regenerate on enemy hit, and then traversal attack resource on enemy hit. Same thing we saw before, right? Where we can throw it, any enemy hit, we're not doing any more damage, but we're going to get some traversal resource back. So you'll see in the gameplay, very common to just throw one of these grenades, get all those enemies floated up, hit them with the traversal attack while they're taking that 200% more damage from all sources. So that's going to be kind of the kicker to go back and forth. And then, of course, we do, because we're using a Black Mask piece with Bane, we do also get the villain synergy, Terror Behind the Mask. So basically, every enemy we kill, we just get Terror Behind the Mask. When it reaches 5 stacks, the next enemy you craze deals 500% more damage while it's alive, and you deal 500% more damage while it's alive. So basically, if we time this right, and this is kind of one of those things you're not really going to pay too much attention to while you're in the chaos. It's more of just something that happens, and you just are lucky to have it when it does. But ideally, if you realize you haven't really crazed anything too soon, and you have that those 5 stacks, basically you'll want to craze something like a brute, right? Like maybe a helicopter, or even just a destroyer or something like that. And then it'll have that thing deal 500 damage. And then while it's alive, you'll get just a flat 500% damage bonus. So really, really nice. Really leads to some extremely high damage. All right. Now, coming over here to the right-hand side, we're using the Master Unstoppable. And I should just mention, everything we can use Master, you just use Master, right? Obviously, having a Master version of something is just going to be a higher base DPS, right? So if you only have a regular Building Thunder, it can still work. But then when you get that Master version, the DPS is just going to be a higher floor, right? So works the same way. Same thing with the Two Faces. The Black Mask, don't worry about it. It doesn't come in a Master version because it does no damage anyway, so there's no point in having a damage bonus to it. All right. And then the Master Unstoppable, just a shield. Being a Master just means it has more shield capacity. But we're not, so what some people might be using in their traversal builds is the turtle shell. It is what a lot of people were using prior. It did get nerfed. It used to be 100% damage reduction. Now it's 90% damage reduction, which doesn't sound like a lot, but damage reduction in this game's a little funny. If you have 100% damage reduction on your actual screen here, right on this slot, if this is at 100%, it does not mean you're invincible. It means you take half damage from all sources. So 100% damage reduction equals half damage, right? So turtles piece, not really worth it. So it's really only like half damage. So what we're actually using instead is the Unstoppable here. And again, this gives us the Bane set and allows us to open up the rest of our slots, which you'll see in just a second why that's beneficial. But really straightforward here. Now, what a lot of people don't really remember is that this piece, unlike, maybe the Neck Bomb or the Lucky Charm that are the Bane piece, the shield actually has an ability. So it's while there are 4 or more crazed enemies within 20 meters of you, you deal 100% more damage and take 50% less damage. So that's pretty huge. So we're already getting a 50% damage reduction pretty much all the time, because we're always going to be within 4 meters of crazed enemies, right? And especially going to be especially helpful for things like the boom modifier, right? When you do a takedown or shield harvest on an enemy, like a small enemy that's going to possibly explode, you're going to probably take 50% less from them. You're going to be okay, right? And Deadshot himself, just as a character, has pretty long range takedowns and suicide strikes, so you don't need to worry too much about the boom modifier, but it is something to be aware of, especially on the larger enemies. But we're just going with flat crit hit chance, right? Pretty straightforward. 9% traversal attack resource generation, and then 40% electrified resistance. Now, electrified resistance is basically the snipers, right, that shoot you and then you can't use your traversal attack. Or you'll notice if you're playing with like weather conditions, those little kind of areas on the ground that shoot lightning, and then again, you're just electrified. What more electric resistance does, it doesn't stop you from getting afflicted, but it reduces the time that you stay afflicted. And if you have it at 100%, it will completely negate, so you will not get afflicted with it at all. So in our stats, you'll see our live wire bolt resistance. We do have this at 100 exactly. This is a combination of gear and the squad talents, right? So I'll show you that in just a minute, but you want to be at 100. It's just something to be at. It's just a quality of life thing. You can live without this if you really want to just spec like more damage here instead of electrified resistance. You can do that. I won't stop you. But I do think the survivability of, not getting electrocuted, as well as the fact that we're spamming our traversal attack quite a bit, and being electrified does stop your traversal attack. To me, electrified resistance is a must in this build, so that's what we're going for there. Coming over to the traversal mod, we're using a Master Turtles Still Force Conduit. This piece is insane. Definitely recommend the Master version because it affects your traversal attack based damage. So basically, we're gonna, like you'll see in the gameplay, we're gonna be spamming our traversal attack all the time. Having a master version, if you have it, is just more icing on top of that damage gravy. All right, and then what we're gonna have here just for the mods: damage to grunt enemies, pretty straightforward, just making sure we clean things up. Traversal attack damage flat, and then traversal attack damage on crazed enemies. Now remember, with the Bane set, you're gonna be crazing everything that you do hit with the traversal attack, right? And then, like I said, you're going to be getting it back pretty regularly. So if it doesn't kill things right away, it'll craze them, and then you just fire a few shots if you need to, use the attack again, and now the second time you do it on the crazed enemy is going to be doing massively more damage, all right? And then the Turtle Still Force Conduit, what it does is while you're moving, you get more bonus stacks of the Speed Force Exhaustion. So essentially a 500% damage boost. You'll see that last line. Don't worry about like the first 2/3 of the paragraph here, but basically where it says Speed Force Exhaustion increases damage done by 50% per stack. This effect can stack up to 10 times. Basically, as long as you're moving and you're not standing in one place, which of course you will be, you're going to be at 10 stacks all the time, right? So it's just going to be a flat 500% damage bonus to everything you do. And then coming over here, we're going with the Hugo Strange's specialization, all right? Now, this is a switch, right? This has been a switch for me since the patch, right? Because the way this works, right, is... So they nerfed the turtles' shield and the molten skin shield so that they're not immunity anymore. This item still gives immunity, okay, but it's a little bit different. Basically what it is after afflicting 5 enemies with the same affliction, you are now immune to damage from enemies afflicted by that affliction for 20 seconds. That is a long time. Now it's easy to think that this doesn't work because it doesn't negate all damage. It'll only negate damage from the enemies that are afflicted by that affliction. So obviously, since we're doing crazed, it'll only negate damage from crazed enemies. You can still take damage from non-crazed enemies, right? So it's not perfect, but I still think that this is extremely valuable to have just as a defensive piece in the current meta, especially with enemies doing more damage but having less health. You really do need some good defense, and I think this is definitely one of the better ways to get it. And then we're just going for a little more electrified resistance, 20% on a green mod, really good value there. 23% crit hit damage. We're going to be critting all the time. You'll see major numbers from our assault rifle, and then just damage to crazed enemies flat. And then the other kind of perk here is you do get the rage itself. All right, so each time you craze an enemy, you get 50% increased damage for 30 seconds up to a maximum of 250. That's another 250% damage bonus. So between the defensive piece and just having this damage bonus for crazing enemies, due to the villain synergy, this piece is kind of a no-brainer to me. All right, and then whoops. And then the last piece, pretty straightforward, is just a Jinx's Lucky Coin. So for the green slot, there's really nothing great in the green slot. So we're using ammo on critical hits. basically we're going to be critting all the time, so all this really does is just make sure that we never have to switch off our assault rifle. There will literally never be a time that we run out of ammo for our assault rifle. You'll actually see in the gameplay, if you look down at my ammo screen, you'll notice how as I'm shooting ammo, the reserve ammo just goes up, right? Like if I'm down in reserve ammo, as I shoot, the reserves just go right back up. So we never actually run out of damage. Or ammo, I should say. Then I'm going with a little more electrified resistance. Again, that's just to bring it to 100. And then damage to crazed enemies. And then what the Jinx's Lucky Coin does, as you may know, basically gives you a flat 250% increased damage to all afflicted enemies. But then every 20 seconds, it rotates through. And you'll see just here. So right now, as I'm standing here, it's damage to frozen, right? So it's 250 across the board, but then an extra 750 to frozen. And then in the next 20 seconds, it'll rotate down to burning, and then electrified, and then crazed. So you can't really rely on this super hard. You'll notice at times where you just get a massive spike and you think, oh, I must be on the crazed rotation, right? It'll just happen in the flow of combat. But even just for the 250% and then a quarter of the time having an even bigger bonus, totally worth it, right? Totally worth it as just a piece in general. So really a no-brainer with the Jinx's Lucky Charm. So with all of that, I mean, we really get a good amount of synergies here just from Bane, from our traversal, from all of our villain synergies, and then just the general bonuses here. And the other thing too to keep in mind about the Black Mask's priority, you can actually throw this. So obviously both that and our melee piece are Venom Frenzy, right? You can actually always throw the Black Masks as an affliction grenade, and it'll still get the effect because it just applies to being hit with the grenade. So it'll still work whether you throw it as affliction or not affliction. So just always throw it as affliction, and then you'll just get more craze out of it. As far as your teammates here, now you always want to be off on Social Squad and then basically just equip a Black Mask priority and then a stacked deck, which is the firearm reduced damage by 50%, but then each successive hit causes the enemy to take 15% more damage up to 750. These are all independent buffs, right? So like if I hit an enemy with my Black Mask grenade and then Harley Quinn hits it with her Black Mask grenade just as my companion, it's going to take 400%, right? It's going to be a different 200 on top. So you just want that grenade and then this type of weapon on all of your characters. So you'll see we have that. And basically what that means is these are all just going to be our support squad members, right? They're literally, we don't really care about their damage or what they're doing. They're just going to be in there slinging, just absolutely slinging, just making it so that our damage is absolutely through the moon. And then the only other thing you just want to make sure is that the melee and the grenade on all of your companions is Venom Frenzy, just because you don't want them overwriting your craze, right? We're not really thinking that they're gonna, apply it any better than we are, but we just don't want, you don't want to craze something and then surprise, Captain Boomerang freezes everybody and you lost all that craze that you had, right? So that's the goal. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward build. Check out the talents here. I'm not going to go through each one, but this is what I'm using. The main piece here is this right here, Top Off. So this, I don't know if it's bugged, but basically performing a fuel dump traversal attack has a 50% chance to refill 25% fuel dump resource. This definitely doesn't, it's definitely more than just 25. It seems like it's a 50% chance to refill 25 per enemy hit. That's what it seems like. I can't confirm that 100%, but that's just how it feels in gameplay. And especially we've got a lot of fuel dump resource buildup. You'll even see in the, if I go here, we have about 75% traversal attack buildup rate. So that goes on top of the actual 25%. So like the 50% chance to get 25%, take that 25% and then 75% of that, right? So you're looking at more like closer, not quite 50, but maybe like close to like a mid 40% refresher. And that's going to be per enemy hit, right? And then in the talents, I think there's even more, fuel dump buildup we can even get there. So, things like this, once we're at 50 combo, you can get even more fuel dump resource buildup. So that's going to be it. You'll notice in the gameplay, we're just dumping off nonstop, and then our assault rifle is just going to be going to town on people. And then as far as the squad talents, what you really want here is, of course, crit hit chance, traversal attack damage. You want to max out, alternate if you can, damage to grunts and damage to brutes, because that's just going to be a flat 20. Damage to crazed, right? And then over here, you do want to max this out. I don't need it maxed out, because my gear has pretty good rolls, but electrified resistance, you can go up to 20%. I don't go up to 20% just because I'm already at that 100.5%. So 13 is enough for me, but if it's not enough for you, maybe your rolls are a little different, or you just don't want to, roll it on certain pieces of gear, that's totally fine, but I would strongly recommend getting that 20% on the skill tree here. And then lastly, I just use this right here, traversal attack, resource generation. Again, going to make it so that, when you're actually gaining back that fuel dump, it's really going through the moon. So you can just spam it over and over again. But that is the build. I hope you guys like it. Definitely stick around and check out the gameplay. And I'm doing the gameplay just on Mastery 50, but it can certainly go much higher than that, and I'll be posting more gameplay. I'm definitely going to stick with this build. This build is going to be one that I play for quite a while alongside the other boomerang that I just put out, and then I'm working on a new Harley build, which is kind of an update to my old Harley build, the grenade one, and then King Shark build that I'm also working on for post-patch. And these are really going to be my primary builds for sure, just to kind of grind the ladder. So I'll definitely be posting updates, doing some live streams on, how that climb is progressing. But I assure you guys, check this build out. It absolutely slays, I promise you. But that is it for me, guys. Again, if you like the video, if you like the build, or you learned something, or you plan on using it, be sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel, enjoy the gameplay. That is it for me, and I'll see you in the next one.